Hello, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Um, sorry again for the late start. Yeah, sorry, just got here a couple minutes late and always takes a little bit of time to get everything set up. But let's go ahead. We'll hit the ground running here. Um, not sure yet if we'll be joined by my co-host or not. Hopefully they will be able to make an appearance. So as always, there's a lot of very important stuff to be talking about on today's program. I think the first thing I'm going to start with is it may not be the biggest story going on, but it is something that could have a direct impact on your pocketbook when it comes to your energy bills. And for most of my working class listeners, that is a top story. As always, the following thoughts, views, and opinions are not necessarily those of 89.1 WIDR or Western Michigan University, no matter how dope or insightful they may turn out to be. So, coming up, we're going to be talking about Dana Nessel is actually intervening on behalf of consumers against consumers' energy. So we're going to talk about that. This is an article from Michigan Advance. It was written by Kyle Davidson, published on April 17th. Michigan AG seeks decrease in consumers' energy natural gas rate case. While calling for reforms to the regulatory body overseeing Michigan's energy companies, Attorney General Dana Nessel on Thursday announced that her office would be seeking reduction in a natural gas rate case recently filed by Consumers Energy. In her request, Nessel asked the Michigan Public Service Commission for a 61% reduction to the company's request to raise its energy rate by $240 million. In a statement, she said the request included several instances where the company inflated its capital spending projections and included unreasonable profit margins for the company. She also asked the commission not to increase monthly service charges for customers and to reject the utility's request for a revenue decoupling mechanism, which Nessel said is intended to force ratepayers to cover lost revenue during summer months and lost market sales. As always, Consumers Energy has stuffed its rate hike request with ridiculous, overstated costs, Nessel said in a statement. By now, we should all be exhausted by this predictable pattern of greed and complete disregard for the Michigan utility customer. We already know how this process ends. The MPSC will also certainly split the difference between our recommendation and Consumers Energy's rate hike request to appease the utility, but where does that leave families bled for more every year? She noted that the MPSC has allowed nearly $800 million in annual increases for consumers' energy since 2019, arguing that the state's system around energy rates is fundamentally broken. Brian Wheeler, a media relations specialist with consumers, sent Michigan Advance a statement on the request, saying the utility understood the concerns of its customers amid rising costs of living. And if you want to read that for yourself, that is part of the article. That is, again, you can find that on Michigan Advance. Michigan AG seeks decrease in consumers' energy natural gas rate case. And honestly, it's good to see, a lot. I think a lot of oversized attention is usually spent on DTE. And, make no mistake, DTE has also been gouging its customers on the east side of the state for quite some time. But a lot of times, consumers mostly kind of Southwest Michigan doesn't get quite as much of attention, but it is also a bad actor its own way. And of course, my particular take on it, above and beyond, challenging these rate increases at the legal level, which is a good thing. Obviously, on our show, we've been critical of Dana Nessel on a number of things, but it is good to see that we have the bully pulpit of the AG, as well as its legal backing, is trying to make things make these energy bills more livable for those of us here in Southwest Michigan. But this is also the core issue, as always, is capitalism. It's because we have a corporate entity, in this case, Consumers Energy, that is providing electricity and heating with a profit motive. Even Dana Nessel references that in her statement. And I'm hoping. Last week we were covering a story about Ann Arbor and their successful attempts to kind of build out a publicly owned, power utility, not necessarily to replace DTE outright, but to run in parallel with it, with maybe the hopes that once they're at scale, that something like that could happen. But I really think we could take a page from what our comrades are doing in Ann Arbor, and start, doing it ourselves. Solar panels keep going down in price every year, and I know Michigan gets a lot of gloomy days, but we do get a lot of windy ones too. So there are sources for energy that we could plug into the grid and make a more independent power grid that does not rely on monopolistic companies like Consumers Energy. So there's hope. I think that we could really go in that direction. I don't think I see anybody in the Kalamazoo community really spearheading that at the moment. But hey, if you're listening and you're like, how can I contribute to a better world? What is in my wheelhouse? Maybe you're an engineer and you want to fight for social justice. Well, that's a big gap in our community that I don't think, at least off the top of my head, I don't really think there are too many organizations concurrently working on. So at least not with the kind of scope and intent of, say, the project that they're doing out in Ann Arbor. Anyway, if you want to read more about that, again, that's at Michigan Advance. Michigan AG seeks decrease in consumers' energy gas hike. Um, I also want to do this is a more of a quick hit story, but this comes to us from WWMT, and this is a story I've seen unfolding here and there. I actually first found out about it on social media. I have some friends, colleagues who got some video from the county jail. We're talking to two inmates inside the county jail, talking about lack of water, lack of clean drinking water inside the Kalamazoo County Jail. Specifically, this has been recognized by the county. The pipes are putting out dirty, undrinkable water, so they have been giving plastic bottles out to inmates. There were, again, unverified reports I saw on social media of them only receiving 2 to 3 bottles a day. And even some of the legacy media in the area has picked up on this. I'm actually going to read now. This is reporting from WWMT. And again, hats off to is Colin Roos, who filed this report. This was published yesterday, April 20th, updated this morning. Headline: Cruel and inhumane one-on-one with Kalamazoo County jail inmate on water issues. The Kalamazoo County inmate is calling the jail's current conditions cruel and inhumane. Since Friday, numerous relatives of inmates have messaged News Channel 3 saying their loved ones are left thirsty and don't believe the county is telling the truth about how much drinking water they're providing. After the Kalamazoo County Health Department recommended that no one drinks the jail water, staff began providing water bottles to inmates. Leonard Bostwick, who had been housed at the Kalamazoo County Jail for about 5 weeks, he says he noticed water issues on day one. In a video call from his cell, Bostwick says the sinks have been off for over a month and he's been using bottled water for both drinking and washing his hands. I was told by one of the officers we were supposed to get 5 to 7, Bostwick said. We're getting 3, maybe 4 a day. That's bottles of water. Kalamazoo County Undersheriff Michelle Greenlee said Friday inmates would receive up to 7 bottles daily, but Bostwick says the problems go beyond a limited supply. Bostwick showed News Channel 3 cloudy water he says comes from his shower, which is the only running water he can access. Bostwick's wife says the water situation caused her husband and other inmates to overheat from rationing water throughout the day. She added her husband has filed grievances at the jail but has not heard any response from the administration. News Channel 3 asked Kalamazoo County Public Information Officer Taylor Koopman how the water bottles are distributed. Through a statement, Koopman confirmed water bottles are given out to each person, which each meal says that they're available throughout the day upon request. Inmates are able to receive a full bottle by returning an empty one. The jail's water quality problems are expected to take 6 to 8 months to fix, but Bostwick says he's worried about the hot summer months. I wouldn't feed my dog with the water, Bostwick said. I wouldn't make my dog drink it. Kalamazoo County officials say they already repaired the jail's water softener and flushed the plumbing system in March. The facility has moved to bottled water for food preparation in the meantime. This is definitely a story we need to keep a close eye on as a community. I'm going to paraphrase it, by an intense degree here, but some philosophers say it's like you can judge a society by the state of its prisons and its jails. And this is certainly not a good look for the Kalamazoo community, and it's certainly not in the vein of uh, you know maintaining individuals' dignity and human rights. Even or especially in the county jail. And Again, as I mentioned, I'd been seeing this crop up on social media, and I hadn't gotten a chance to cover it yet myself. But I think hopefully this is an example of when the media can really kind of use its spotlight to do some real good. Especially, Channel 3 covering the story. That is a good thing because it's bringing it to a lot of the people, again, a lot of the people in the community who would not otherwise know about this problem. And as the inmate said, the temperatures are starting to get warmer. We're getting into the 70s. Once it goes into the 80s or the 90s, the jails, the county jail is not, it's not like everything is air conditioned, and it could lead to some really hot, sweltering summer months. And if we need to make sure that these people have basic access to water, dehydration is a terrible, it does not feel good. It is a terrible thing to be sick from, and God forbid, uh, die from. But it's going to make living conditions at the county jail much, much worse. And it is up to the community to keep our eyes on the county jail, and especially the politicians and the jail workers at the county level make sure that people's human needs are being met, especially as we go into these hot summer months. So again, if you want to read that article for yourself, that's on WWMT's website. Cruel and Inhumane, one-on-one with Kalamazoo County Jail inmate on water issues. Okay, we're going to take a quick little break. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Keep it on lock. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. So we're going to be kind of shifting gears with this next story, kind of moving outside of the local and state level towards an international story. And this is something from the Intercept that I think it's a really great example, like in microcosm of the way the U.S. State Department spreads propaganda here and around the world. It's something we talk about on our show occasionally, but I think this is a really good example of like essentially like you know describing it in real time. Often we are able to talk about these things after the fact. We could do like a whole historical teach-in about Operation Mockingbird and that sort of thing. Which, for those unfamiliar, that was a CIA project to basically infiltrate American media with pro-government voices. The degree of success of that is Well, as you've probably seen in your lifetime, whether you're younger or older, that's largely been privatized now. So, but there's this really good article from the Intercept I want to share with y'all that really goes into this. It's kind of the nuts and bolts of a concurrent U.S. government propaganda operation and how they are able to kind of present themselves as quote unquote on the ground media to push a specific ideological agenda. So again, like I said, this is from The Intercept. It's written by Sam Biddle, published yesterday on April 20th. These Middle Eastern news sites are actually U.S. government propaganda operations. Al Fasel and Pishtaz News published pro-U.S. coverage about the war on Iran and the Trump administration's plan to redevelop Gaza. Alpha Cell and Pishtaz News look like typical news websites. They have neatly designed home pages and active social media accounts, where they share reporting and videos on Middle Eastern geopolitics in Arabic and Farsi, respectively, as well as English. Al Fasil's X account states the publication's mission is to investigate events of great significance that are often overlooked by local and regional media, and to shed light on them. The Pishtaz News X account says it was established to investigate and expand upon important news that local and regional media often overlook. And again, that's a good way to hook yourself into the local population. Like that is very similar to one of the taglines of our show, digging underneath the headlines, talking about the stories that the mainstream press doesn't talk about. It's their way. They're trying to coach what is blatant state-backed propaganda in these sort of grassroots, underground journalism terms that would be more appealing to the audience that they're trying to reach. Sorry, that quick aside there. These overlooked stories share the same ideological slant and editorial voice, that of the White House. El Fasil's YouTube account, for instance, has racked up millions of views on Arabic language videos praising the Trump administration's Gaza policy and exhorting Hamas to cease taking orders from the Iranian regime and release Israeli prisoners. On Pishtaz News, a poll on the home page recently asked, "How would you describe your belief about the Supreme Leader's current health status and whereabouts?" Possible answers range from in good health but hiding to disfigured or dead. The excellence of Saudi and Emirati leadership, both close military partners of the U.S., is a recurring theme. So, just to kind of break down a little bit what they're doing here, this is again, it's very similar to the way U.S. right wing media will couch its kind of fascist authoritarian agenda in these underdog terms. It's something that is kind of it is baked in to the way a lot of these right wing outlets in the US talk. They always have to project themselves as the underdog because they understand if they just come around and say, like, no, we just want to gather power for power's sake and, glaze the billionaires and all that stuff. That's not a message that's going to have a ton of support. In a similar way, they understand that English speaking, propaganda from the White House, it's like you take this medicine and it's good for you, is not going to have the same impact as something that seems like a locally run, grassroots media that just happens to have the same opinions as the U.S. State Department. Going on. There's a reason that coverage echoes American foreign policy talking points. Al Fasl and Pishtaz News are, in fact, part of a network of websites and social media accounts purporting to be legitimate Middle Eastern news outlets that are, in fact, propaganda mills funded by the United States government. Disclosed only at the bottom of both sites behind an about link that is easily missed by casual readers, the outlets note that they are a product of an international media organization publicly funded from the budget of the United States government. So again, they're not like hiding it. They're not, doing anything necessarily illegal, but it's in fine print. It's like right at the bottom. It's like, oh, by the way, this is US propaganda. The site's recent fixation on crushing Iran is unlikely to be a coincidence. Both publications share numerous connections with a portfolio of fake newsrooms that originated as a military psychological operations campaign against foreign internet users. Al Fasel and by the way, I'm sorry, my Midwestern accent is probably obliterating, but well, I don't know. If something is a US backed propaganda outlet, does it matter if I pronounce it correctly? I guess it's fake in the first place. I don't know. Anyway, El Fossil or Facile or Al American News and Pishtaz News did not respond to requests for comment, nor did CENTCOM or the Department of Defense. In 2008, U.S. Special Operations Command put out a call for contractors to help operate what it called the Trans-Regional Web Initiative, a project that would provide rapid, on-order global dissemination of web-based influence products and tools in support of strategic and long-term U.S. government goals and objectives. That's a lot of word salad, but as the article sums up, in other words, state propaganda pushed by the Pentagon. Masquerading as independent online newsrooms, the TRWI sites hired indigenous content stringers to produce articles which combatant commands, or COCOMs, can use as a necessary in support of the global war on terror. Which, by the way, if you thought the global war on terror was done, culturally maybe, but they still use these terms inside the DoD at the Pentagon and such. So to them, the struggle continues. Struggle to, of course, find new enemies to distract the American population with, so they don't think too much about all the billionaires and their politicians taking away all of our healthcare and social safety net stuff. Anyway. The contract awarded to General Dynamics Information Technology spawned 10 websites that funneled U.S. foreign policy talking points to audiences across the Middle East and South Asia, running everything from banal essays about interfaith coexistence to, as reported by Foreign Policy in 2011, articles intended to whitewash the image of Central Asian dictatorships. By 2014, the sites were deemed a failure by Congress and defunded. And that, by the way, that is I think our listeners, there was a lot of different opinions on like dictatorships and government and authority. Some of my listeners are Marxists, some of them are anarchists, and some of them will probably one of those two by the end of the year. Um, at the end of the day, who the United States government calls a dictator is really predicated on a couple of very specific factors, and primarily all of those factors are based on whether or not they are financially helping the United States and the corporations that run the United States, more pointedly. Any time where it doesn't seem like they're going to play ball or they might endanger the United States' financial hegemony, they become a dictator and somebody who must be stopped. So just a quick aside, some that kind of popcorn after reading that. 8 years later, a team of researchers published an unusual report. Following the 2016 election, the bulk of the Western media's interest in online propagandizing had focused on influence campaigns attributed to Russia, China, and other American geopolitical rivals. But the 2022 report from the Stanford Internet Observatory and Graphica, a commercial internet analysis firm and Pentagon information warfare contractor, uncovered a network of phony pro-Western Twitter and Facebook accounts that pushed articles from pseudo news websites. The report stopped short of formally attributing the campaign to the U.S., but noted that both Meta and Twitter had done so. The researchers concluded that the accounts in question attempted the coordinated spread of articles from a network of sham news websites established by U.S. Special Operations Command. The report found that just a few years after TRWI's ostensible death, many of the sites had simply rebranded, now carrying hard-to-find disclosures mentioning that they were run by U.S. Central Command. Following Stanford and Graphica's findings, some of the sites shut down, others continued. Subsequent reporting by the Washington Post found that the embarrassing revelation spurred the Pentagon to conduct a sweeping audit of how it conducts clandestine information warfare. A review of the Internet Archive shows that in the aftermath of the Stanford report, TRWI sites that remained in operation changed their disclosure language. Rather than citing CENTCOM sponsorship, these sites shifted to say that they are publicly funded from the budget of the United States government. The disclosure language used by the remaining network of CENTCOM propaganda sites is a word for word copy of the phrasing the Intercept found tucked away on the about pages of Pishtaz News and Al Fasel. That's not the only evidence suggesting a link to this network of military propaganda sites. Since they began in 2023, Al Fasel and Pishtaz News have regularly quoted or summarized CENTCOM press releases touting regional operations and battlefield successes, as did the outlets mentioned in the Stanford Graphica report. The reliance on combatant command press releases in particular is an editorial strategy that dates back to the original SOCOM run TRWI network. On X, Pishtaz News follows only three other users. Two are the official CENTCOM accounts for Farsi and Arabic audiences. The Pishtaz News Instagram account, which carries no disclosure of the account's governmental nature, follows only one other user, U.S. CENTCOM Farsi. But by the way, I'm just going to say, if the Pentagon is spending millions, billions of dollars on these propaganda campaigns, it's really embarrassing that you have like such a huge red flag. Like, follow some other accounts and definitely don't follow the don't follow the feds. That's a bit of a giveaway if you're trying to kind of position yourself or portray yourself as independent media that is not necessarily just a talking piece in the region for Central Command. Intentionally or otherwise, Alpha Cell's posts to X are often geotagged as having been sent from Lutz, Florida, a stone's throw from the headquarters of CENTCOM and SOCOM in Tampa, as well as myriad military contractors that service both. Which again, you may remember we had a big story just a few months ago about how like a lot of these MAGA pages were, from African countries or Israel, et cetera, et cetera. Is kind of finding out that a lot of this stuff is astroturfed. And that also that works in reverse too. A lot of this U.S. propaganda that we push out to other countries is astroturfed right here in the good old U.S. of A. As I don't know if I had no moralities, that sounds like it could be a pretty good gig. Make up propaganda for the government on social media. Anyway, not I hope I'm not giving you any of you ideas. Don't turn your back on the revolution just for a few pennies. Anyway. Both sites share common design elements with the TRWI associated publications that suggest they were created or operated by the same contractor. All posts conclude with a poll asking, "Do you like this article?" using the same thumbs up and thumbs down icons. URLs are structurally identical for Alpha Cell, Pishtaz News, and Salam Times, an Afghanistan-focused site launched under the TRWI that continues today under a different name, suggesting that they were coded using the same tools. The three sites use an identical 404 error graphic to alert users when they've clicked on a broken link as well. The web design of Al Fasel and Pishtaz News, including page layout, URL structure, 404 error graphic, and much of the legal verbiage in the About sections, clearly mirrors that of CENTCOMCitadel.com, a publication with similar content that carries an overt disclosure of Pentagon sponsorship at the bottom of its homepage. These sites are similar in style to the overt messaging efforts we see from the Department of Defense previously. Renee DeResta, a former Stanford researcher and co-author of the 2022 report, told The Intercept. We previously saw this pattern of clearer U.S. affiliation language in the About page of the domain, then minimal to no acknowledgement on the social media profiles. There are other subtle nods to the site's true purpose. URLs for the English language versions of each site are denoted in _GB for Great Britain. In a comprehensive 2015 analysis of the TRWI network, University of Bath doctoral student Roy Revy observed that the network of American military propaganda sites explicitly mark their English versions as British because SOCOM seeks to avoid any suggestion its sites are aimed at U.S. audiences. In the parlance of information warfare, these propaganda shops are considered overt rather than covert because their state ownership is technically disclosed. But in his 2015 paper, Revy argued that these PSYOP sites still engage in deception. They use online journalism as a form of camouflage, he wrote, because most readers won't seek out a publication's about page to learn about its funding. The design of these sites allows the DoD to credibly claim full transparency and maintain legitimacy, putting the onus into the user to inform themselves about the source, Revy wrote. And just as a quick aside, that's media literacy is really important. And it's something that we try to impress upon our listeners almost every episode. And where, whenever you find like a new outlet, it is critical, it's important to figure out, you know, what is this source? Who gives them their money? What biases do they have? Who is financially backing, this particular source? It is critical in order to have media literacy to really, um, you know, make sure that you focus in on that. So I think we're going to go ahead. There is more to the article, and we will link to it in our show notes. But I think it's just again, it's an important example, kind of in real time, of how U.S. backed propaganda is disseminated across the world. That was again from the Intercept. These Middle Eastern news sites are actually U.S. government propaganda operations. It was published by the Intercept and by Sam Biddle, published yesterday, April 20th. We're going to take another quick break. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. You can also find us online at Media Cyphers on YouTube, Facebook, and the Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast you can find on most podcasting apps. Give it a lock. This is Media Cyphers, your source for political revolution. Hello again, everybody out there in radio land. Y'all are listening to Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR or online at widerfm.org. Joined now by my co-host Lawrence. Lawrence, how you doing today?
All right, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. It's a beautiful day out. I wanna get serious here for a second though. We had there was a tragedy over this last week. It's very close to home to me. I'm a current resident of the Vine neighborhood, but many of you heard there was a murder over at Davis Street Park, which is one of like the big hangouts in the Vine neighborhood. It's got like a little skate park area. We do There's public events there on a regular basis, especially like through the summer. Um, and it was Telonn Horton, was 29, who was killed by um, it's a 22-year-old. I don't even want to say his name, but we don't really know too many details about the shooter as of right now. Latest coverage I saw from Channel 3 was that he was at least acquainted with Telon, or as many of you in the neighborhood knew him, Rose Lonnie, which, by the way, just my sincerest condolences. On a personal level, I did not know them, but I'm like 1 degree of separation. Like a lot of my friends who I've known my entire adult life, knew them very well. Like I said, this dude was just like a friendly ball of sunshine, and um, it's a really senseless and awful thing to happen. Um, I say the Vine, the Vine is one of like the four main working class neighborhoods here in Kalamazoo. There's Vine, there's North Side, Edison, and East Side. Um, and I haven't grown up. I grew up in the Edison, and then Lawrence, you grew up on the North Side, right? That's correct.
Northside all my life.
All right. So, something I was thinking about, Vine is no stranger. There's crime surges happen here and there. Although I don't think, I think one of the reasons this has been so shocking is, I do remember growing up in the Edison in the 90s. There was a prevalence of gun violence, it felt like a more kind of regular part of everyday life. And I think for a lot of people in the Vine neighborhood, it's not something that they're necessarily to exposed to on such a regular basis. Um, and we talk a little bit about we don't know enough about the dynamics of the shooting itself to really dig into to a lot of like the factors of like the shooter's motive and what could have been systemically done to prevent X, Y, or Z. But I'm really glad that you're here on the program today, Lawrence, because I know you've worked as a gun violence prevention specialist. This is something that has really been part of your wheelhouse here in the community. So I wanted to kind of hear like your response to this tragic event, and kind of like maybe how it ties into some of the work that you used to do or have done, trying to kind of prevent this kind of violence here in the community.
Still doing actually.
Still doing, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Shout out to people at Griffin Place. Shout out to Western Michigan University. Um, Shout out to uh all the other organizations that are part of the uh community violence intervention, like Peace and War and and others. Um, yeah, the mother. I saw the article and I saw what the mother said. Shout out to Channel 3 and Wood TV 8. They covered it. The mother said that a week before the young man, the assailant, was at their house, at their house, at their lunch, at the dinner table, having dinner, drinking beer and stuff. So, and like we know, well, violence like this usually happen over 70% of the time. Violence like this happens with people who you know, people who you are around, right? You're connected to who you're connected to. Um, I don't know why the shooting took place. I don't know what altercation um what altercation escalated
I've
to
seen some
what.
speculation on social media. I'm not going to repeat it on air because I can't verify any of it, but
But
yeah,
the,
it's
our,
unknown.
yeah, but regardless of whatever it was, it did not need to escalate to someone pulling a weapon. Like you um there's always a time for us to de-escalate, for us to for a cooler head to prevail. There's always uh walking away. And if you are a young person, because the assailant was 22 years old, um and like I'm not someone who's going to tell you not to protect yourself. But what are you doing at a skate park, or what are you doing in your life that you are at a skate park and you need a weapon? Like what things have you been doing that you feel unsafe, that you feel so unsafe that you need to protect yourself at a skate park, right?
Mhm.
Like I think that we need to the thing that we need to talk about as as a community, or especially when it comes to like these type of situations, especially with young dudes, because the young man that did this was only 22 years old. Like I don't I hate the phrase that it's not that deep when it comes in most situations. But I would have loved to want to sit down and talk to this young man and be like, hey, what was going on in your life that you need to carry a weapon? That you felt unsafe just at a park with people that you know. What were you doing? Because this is senseless. It was absolutely insane, and it's such a tragedy that didn't need to happen.
Oh yeah, and again, it kind of goes back to just like what kind of conversation or altercation were you having with this person who ostensibly was like a friend or an acquaintance that you felt the need to it's it's
Comfortable.
just so
You are
tragic.
comfortable enough. You are comfortable enough to be at the parents' house of this person. You was at his mama's house drinking beers and eating food. Andy, if I ever came to your mama's house, we have to be at some type of cool. If I'm at your mom's house eating dinner and drinking beers,
Yeah,
like that's not you're not casually strolling over to someone's house, uh, just on a whim, especially not their mama's house. Like, but yeah, it's sad. It's tragedy. Pray for the family. I don't know if the family has a GoFundMe. Um, when we get more information about like uh homegoing services, we'll talk about it on the show. I know people have been uh leaving flowers and candles at the skate park because the young man
there was a vigil there the other day, I believe. Yeah.
people's been paying their respects that way. It's good to see the community show love, but also, yeah, check on your people, fam. That's my main thing. Check on
Yeah.
your people and understanding that even in the most heated of situations, you can always de-escalate. You can always walk away. It's it is in like I feel like because of people's egos and people's motivation to not feel belittled or something, or even lose a fight. Like, dog, losing a fight does not mean that you need to come back and take someone's life, right?
No. Mm-mm.
And but like it's one of those things where we go. I feel like now like people just go straight to the extremes, consistently to the extreme. It's always to the most left wing thing. Like it's the most extreme measure of all time when it doesn't need to be that way, right?
Mm-mm.
Right? Like it's yeah.
Yeah,
It's
I'll say I think I may have come across a fundraiser. I could be misremembering. I might have come across that on social media. If that is the thing, I will link to it in the show notes. And I just want to say too, it's I think it's really important, check in on your friends. Especially, you know, you check in on the head state of the people around you. I'm sure, they couldn't have predicted, a week later this acquaintance that was at their house would be, you know, killing them in cold blood. And it's important to check on your friends, their mental state, because it's the thing is everybody has issues, man. But if you combine those issues with a deadly weapon, that can result in a tragedy like this. And again, I this is kind of speculation. I don't know what the shooter was going through the shooter's mind, but that's another thing to consider. And I also just want to say on a personal note, like to all my friends who might be listening to the show and knew them better than I did, you're in my thoughts. And if any of y'all listening, hit me up if you need a shoulder. This stuff is always hard. Me and Lawrence, like we've lived through this. We've had classmates of ours, meet these kinds of ends. It is always just awful and gut wrenching, and just senseless. And I'm hoping, the community can kind of come together and heal after this. But yeah, just tragic all around. By all reports, dude was just a total sweetheart, ray of sunshine, and leaves behind he, he had a pregnant girlfriend, from what I heard. So it's just awful, awful, awful. Um, Yeah, I don't have too much else to say about that, but it might be time to kind of switch gears into a lighter topic. Um,
Yeah.
do
Yeah. I just want I want yeah, when we find out more information, if there's a GoFundMe or things of that nature, then we will put it in the show notes and talk about it. There are organizations that do help um with families uh on both sides of the coin. Um uh in different organizations that will help. Um like ISK and Griffin Place and other organizations. So like and those organizations are all tapped in with each other, and it's good. It's good. It's a good thing to be a part of. That the organizations like that in Kalamazoo do exist.
hmm
Um, if you need more information, I can expand on it. But there's been some news that we need to talk about, especially here in Michigan.
Oh, just
The
not so we don't necessarily need to eat up that time talking about now. But if there are resources you can think of, Lawrence, maybe let me know sometime after the show. We can put them in the show notes.
Yeah,
All right. Yeah. Okay. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off.
man. Uh, so on some not so heavy news. I feel like that's a heavy story. Um, to some lighter news. The Michigan Democratic Convention happened recently. If I remember correctly, it was over the weekend, over this past weekend,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Some prosecutors that I was not a fan of lost their seat, lost their spot, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Um, but I mean, we can expand. We're going to expand more on that particular story in a minute. But the thing that I thought was the most funny was the different responses that the diehard Democratic base had for Stevens and Abdul Al Sayed,
Oh
and
yeah. Mm-hmm.
the videos that came out. So the first thing, Stevens had a marching band
Oh no, no,
with
that
her.
wasn't Steven. That wasn't Stevens. That was Mallory McMorrow. That's we
Well,
gotta talk about that in a second, but yeah.
video, the video I saw of this representative who wants to be in the Senate having a marching band, like it gave off Momula. It gave off the Kamala vibes, right?
Yeah. hmm
And
oh my God. Yeah.
and
uh
it bothered me so much. Not because I don't like Joy. I love a good marching band. Everybody loves a good marching band, right? I feel like the thing that politicians like that don't understand is what is the band for? What are we joyful or celebrating for? Right?
hmm
Like if we're gonna have a band, we're gonna have a marching band. We're gonna get people excited. We're gonna be stepping and all that and all that wonderful fun stuff. Then what what is it that you're excited or celebrating and being joyful for? And when I think of McMorrow, it's nothing. Like McMorrow and Stevens, neither one of them wants to support Medicare for all.
hmm
Neither one of them can call what's going on in Gaza a genocide. Both of them are taking APAC affiliate money, right?
hmm
Um, both of them are neoliberal corporatists. When the base of the party is radical, the base of the party wants radical change. They want they want fighters. They want people. that will speak truth to power and stand 10 toes down on it. They won't do that. They can't come within 10 feet of that. Right?
Hmm.
And you saw it when they gave their convention speech. When they went up and did their convention speech, they got booed. I have never,
Haley Stevens got booed.
yeah,
Yep,
I have
and
never seen that, man.
McMorrow had kind of a please, like a Jeb Bush please clap moment. There's like some muted applause for McMorrow. Yeah. But
Yeah,
yeah, Haley Stevens, who's been like the most overtly Zionist candidate in the primary, yeah, was actively booed at the convention, which I really think that just goes to show what a sea change there's been in the politics around Palestine and Palestinian liberation in the last 5 years. Like you know, even I think back to when I was doing the sort of like Democratic Party progressive push like about 10 years ago. And there would have been nothing like that for like, you know, you would not have had those kinds of consequences for taking, you know, APAC donations. But we live in a very different world and a very different state of Michigan right now. Just to circle back quickly to McMorrow, I wanted to point out so her McMorrow's speech or McMorrow's the marching band um, that was in response to McMorrow did get the endorsement of the Michigan Democratic Party. Now, that is not to say that you know that's she's just gonna be the candidate. That just means she has their official backing, which is really not shouldn't be a surprise to people who follow these types of politics. But it is interesting to me how like the actual rank and file who it was one of the most well attended conventions in years. um you know, and this isn't just us speculating, there's a lot of people on the ground who said like, you know, Abdul El Sayed was kind of treated like a rock star. Like his speech or whenever he goes, people were cheering, loud cheering, very muted for McMorrow. And it's so funny, you see that video of her celebrating her endorsement with that marching band, and there's no crowd whatsoever. You just see like bystanders playing around with their phones. Like they're having a parade to no one, which I think that's like that is the encapsulation of you know, centrist triumphalism in a nutshell. It's like a bunch of the older establishment people in a dark room gave you an endorsement, so you're gonna parade in front of a bunch of unenthusiastic young people who prefer your opponent.
man. Yeah, from what people were saying, the only standing ovation and only massive thunderous applause that you got when Abdul Al Sayed got there, when he was announced and when he spoke. He got the crowd, more fans were there for him, and it's amazing. To at the beginning of the year, he was always third in the polling, right? Right.
Hmm.
Ever since they've been doing this smear of him with Hassan Piker and uh uh uh, uh the Hassan Piker and the Hassan derangement syndrome has been used as a Streisand effect to amplify Abdul's message. Now he's consistently polling in second and first from the last few polls.
Yeah. Hmm.
Emerson's poll, the last Emerson poll that I saw had him uh second place. Well, but that was 2 weeks ago. There's a recent poll. There is a much more recent poll that has him in first. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
It's only one that I've seen that has had him in first. But
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm starting to
it's
have a little hope, Michigan, and like Michigan, y'all have broken my heart before, all right? Like this is the state that foisted Alyssa Slotkin on all of us. But I don't know, you know, there's something different in the water this year, maybe. It's hoping and hoping, you know. Um,
man.
while I do, you know, encourage people you know, get involved X, Y, or Z, you know, it does look like Abdul is gaining some really substantial traction, and again, the political landscape is very different from when he ran for governor in was it 17 or 18?
Yeah,
Time is fake.
like yeah, and then I I still wish that he was our governor, but that's a different conversation. Um, he has an excellent chance of winning this state race, and especially with the news coverage that we are continuing to get, even when he goes on MS Now, which is now not MSNBC, but MS Now, and they are they are asking him to condemn Hassan Piker. They're saying that he's that his views are radical. They're treating him like he's on Fox News. They were treating him
Yeah.
like he was on Fox News. It was the wildest thing to see. And he's just been taking these kids to school, man. He's been
Hmm.
he's been schooling these folks, and it's wonderful to watch. Fantastic to watch.
I think one of the best and most important consequential upsets, especially I'm thinking of the context of our show. We run out of university. We try to track Michigan politics and media. Was the race U of M regent, and I think back even to just 2 years ago, 2024, we had Hawaii Araf on talking about all of the kind of weird, kind of cheaty stuff that the Michigan Democratic Party did to keep her from becoming regent. And 2 years later, we're seeing this is just it's a beautiful story of somebody effed around and found out they're getting consequences for their bad behavior. And what I'm talking about is, you had Jordan Acker, who is he was or yeah was in the past tense, University of Michigan regent during a lot of the anti-genocide protests that have been going on over the last several years. And running against him was Amir Maklid, who, and man, you can't make this up. The poetry is just it's lovely. He is an attorney who went to defend some of those U of M students who were being falsely persecuted by the university. Maklid ran against Jordan Acker for that seat and won by a very healthy margin. Basically, the people who turned out the convention gave Jordan Acker the bum's rush, and now Amir Maklid, who literally was defending those anti-genocide protesters in court, is going to be in the same position that he was, defending those students against. So, like, yeah, it's really great. You got to hold on to if you're on the left, you don't get a lot of W's in politics, and that's just a beautiful story to me. Is somebody who is on the wrong side of history, getting shown the door, while somebody who was defending free speech, defending standing up for the rights of Palestinian students and their supporters is now going to be in that position of power. So it's great to see it, you know.
Yeah, I haven't. We ain't forgot about Dana Nessel either. Dan Nessel and others also tried to prosecute uh
Oh yeah.
uh Western Michigan students and others. We ain't forget about y'all either. Now
Yeah.
I am happy that she has gotten better with some other regulations that she's been doing. Basically trying to get back into the good graces of the in some ways of the of
Yeah. I guess if
progressive.
I met Dana Nessel tomorrow, I'd have to say something like, "Hey, thanks for trying to help me with my electrical bills. Just please leave the kids alone. Don't let them say what they want, please."
Hey, hey, I'm
uh,
I'm happy that you're fighting to keep our electric bills low. Um, I don't like the fact that you try to prosecute students for talking about free Palestine.
yeah.
You need not only do you need to apologize to those students, you also need to apologize to Rashida Tlaib because the way
Yeah.
you tried to smear her was nasty work, was
Yeah.
disgusting. Like,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
okay.
Even when she like she stopped pursuing that course. It was in like the most pithy terms possible. She's like, "Okay, I guess I'm gonna give up on it. If everybody's gonna, I mean, to basically translate what she said, it's like if everybody's gonna make such a big deal about it, I guess I won't prosecute these kids for speaking against genocide." She's just
Yeah,
she's very
yeah,
huffy about it.
yeah.
As
The
something noted, but
anti-genocide. Yeah, you monster, right?
hmm
You absolute
hmm
monster, right?
yeah.
Oh
And
yeah, like
something that is kind of interesting going on this topic is so I had an article to share kind of about this and it's funny because like I know some people on the floor who actually were there and all that stuff, but it's always interesting to kind of examine how is the media framing these things. And the article from Bridge, Michigan, I thought was very interesting from a couple of perspectives. It's pushing two things. It's pushing in various ways the equivocation between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. Um, Apropos of nothing, talking about Emir Maklad's been accused. He's a vocal critic of Israel, and he's been accused of anti-Semitism. And the accusations of anti-Semitism literally come from Zionists who are mad that he is anti-Zionist, and they conflate the two to try to muddy the waters. And these articles never bring up that facet of it. Just just to be clear. Um, and Also, it also is that old canard. The headline of their article is Michigan Democrats push party left. Will voters follow? And there's this whole kind of counterpoint they frame as it's like, oh, the hardcore party activists are pushing all these far left candidates, but Michigan is a purple state and people are not going to vote for people who are that crazy far left. Oh, so I thought it might be worth kind of picking apart those narratives just a little bit. I already go ahead, Lawrence.
yeah, yeah. Michigan. Yeah. We saw in the last election that 20% of the Michigan base said that they will not vote for the president of the United States because of their stance on genocide, and that's radical. 20% of your own base told you we do not care. We do not care we do not care about what your stance is. We do not want the money that we are sending, uh, that you are getting from taxpayers, going to fund bullets and bombs, and to fund the killings of brown and black people in countries that did not attack us. That is not something that may be radical to some. It's it's the human response to normal people.
Hmm. And I think it's
It,
also worth noting, like, you can look at public opinion polling. The anti-genocide position is the majority position. Most rank and file Democrats are more sympathetic with Palestinians. Most independents are more sympathetic with Palestinians. Now, most conservatives are more sympathetic with Israelis, but if you break it down, break the demographics down by age, young conservatives are actually more sympathetic to Palestinians by a slim margin, but a margin nonetheless. Which you'd think that would be if you're trying to appeal to any block of conservatives, might be the younger ones. Rather than trying to find that magical anti-Trump voter that they always, the Lincoln Project people that they keep going after in every election, unicorns. Um,
the people that has turned the Democratic Party into neocons. That's that.
mhm,
That's the Liz Cheney type of voters,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
And though these are the same people that will try to tell you for every blue collar worker we lose, we can pick up a Republican voter and we can replicate that. They've been running that same play since Jesse Jackson, Sam,
Hmm.
and have lost.
Yeah. It's also just it's always interesting to me the way that mainstream corporate media, and look, I do like Bridge, Michigan, but they are very much in the middle. And it's kind of I don't think there's somebody at the top being like, you need to report it this way, but it's just these are the pathologies of like mainstream corporate media. And it is interesting to me how like they equate they equate like candidates with like these very mild like economic populist messaging, but because it comes from the left, it might as well be Bolshevism. It's like they might as well be running on seizing the means of production. Even though, and this is again going back, let's go back to the data. You know, one of the reasons, like, Bernie did so well in Michigan was on that economic populist message. One of the reasons Trump was able to get a lot of the Rust Belt states because Trump also ran on an economic populist message. Now, of course, it was baloney, but that's what he ran on. So the idea that somebody coming from a sincere position of like economic, kind of progressive reform is somehow anathema to the Michigan electorate. It's like y'all don't know what the room actually looks like. It's like, have you been talking to people around Michigan? And like, I'm even talking about like deep conservative parts of Michigan. A lot of the people I talk to, they're like, they hate that their tax money is being used to blow up kids in Gaza. And a lot of them, they don't really want, a lot of them are the libertarian small government types that want government to begin with. But if the government's going to be used on something, it should be used to like, fix the roads and help people rather than line billionaires' pockets. That's a message that resonates with everybody. Well, I should say most people. I guess the Michigan billionaires not so much. But it's something that resonates with most people. But by the way that outlets like Bridge Michigan frame it, you'd think these people were running on things that are fundamentally unpopular, which is again, I think just factually inaccurate.
Man, like when we talk about policy, and it also goes back to the framing of what kind of policies we're talking about, right? Um, um, uh, a policy like Medicare for all is a policy that Republicans, that a large plurality of Republicans support, overwhelming majority of Americans, especially Michiganders support. Because you want to know what cuts through party lines? Cancer. Cancer doesn't care.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You want to cuts through party lines? Medical bills. The number one reason why most Michiganders go bankrupt is because of medical bills. Medical debt is one of the biggest reasons why people in Michigan go into poverty in the state. Um, like uh, well, like, and that's even before we get into like even bigger issues when we talk about the environment, Nestle stealing fresh water from the Great Lakes, things of that nature. Talking well, when it comes to talking about climate change, when we're talking about education and universal like things like Kalamazoo Promise or things like universal free college and tuition. These a lot of these policies cut across party lines, regardless of your economic class, caste, race, or whatever. These are policies that the overall majority of people who live in the state support. Now, to make sure that these programs happen, you're gonna have to tax the rich more, right?
Yep.
That's where the uniparty comes in, the
Mhm.
Democrat and Republican representatives that are bought by the industries that will be affected uh, do their best to spit propaganda back at us to tell us that these things won't work or these things are too hard. Um, that it kind of reminds me of, I don't remember if it was McMurrow or Stevens that gave that horrible answer on the reason why they don't support Medicare for all is because they don't want Donald Trump running your health care. And that's
Yeah, I
not
remember talking about that ridiculous answer was it last week or 2 weeks ago? But
God, still makes me angry.
yeah.
Still makes me angry that to this day, to this
Yeah.
day, we lived through a pandemic where 40% of the workforce lost their jobs. People died because
Yeah.
they did not have health coverage. And that was your answer to a program that we understand will save, that even by conservative Republican estimates will save the American taxpayer $2 trillion and gives them better health coverage. That was your answer. It makes me so angry, and it makes me so angry that that's what that type of thinking is what is what Chuck Schumer and the Democratic Party base, not the base ones, but the representatives, the power, the Michigan Democratic Party and the power brokers in that party. That's what they're thinking. That's not
Hmm.
what the base is thinking.
Yeah, I think
The
it's interesting too because like that whole not to spend too much time on that stupid talking point, but it's interesting the way we talk a lot about the ratchet effects and how Democratic Party has been kind of dragged itself rightward. The last national convention they sounded like 2000s era Republicans, neocons. But it's interesting like they're incorporating some like Republican talking points, like that whole point about Medicare or Medicare for all, that's literally a Republican talking point. It's like you can't trust the government to run that program because look at how inefficient the government is. It's like cutting out the middleman. I guess. And I think it's worth pointing out too. Uh, a lot of what you see in the mainstream corporate press and from corporate Democrats against figures like Abdul El Sayed, they'll lead with like, oh, he's too radical on Palestine, or he's associating with Hassan Piker, who we're going to try to tell you is bad for the next 5 minutes until we figure out that won't work. Um, and all of it is largely because those issues aren't the issues. The issue is Abdul is he is um, I guess biting at the hand that feeds the Michigan Democratic Party and the Democratic Party at large, which is big money donors. And it is that struggle is still continuing. And the Democratic Party at this current moment is facing this kind of boiling over of its primary contradiction, which is you have a lot of people who are trying to turn it into a vehicle for kind of progressive economic populism, which is diametrically opposed to the Democratic Party's current economic base, which is upwardly mobile, wealthy donors who maybe have more liberal, politics than the more conservative billionaires. So it's interesting watching that play out because we know, a lot of people have compared Abdul to Zoran Mamdani, who's quickly becoming one of the most popular politicians in the country. And the reason, and it's like, sometimes we bring, it's like, oh, the Michigan why is the Democratic Party being so stupid? Why don't they just embrace this dude who's like, he's popular with all the young people and all that stuff? And like Mallory McMorrow just doesn't have the juice. She's not a very interesting or charismatic politician. She doesn't have any particularly interesting ideas. And the main reason we have to circle back to it is because that's what the donors want. The donors do not want somebody like Abdul representing Michigan. They would rather have somebody safe like Mallory McMorrow. And that is why you will continue to see these kind of narratives coming out of the mainstream corporate media.
They would rather spend money to fight against Abdul than pay. They will spend more, just like in the Zoran race. They're gonna spend more money trying to fight to keep Abdul out of power than to pay the taxes that Abdul is gonna ask them to pay. That's the long and skinny of it, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
The you have politicians like Stevens and McMorrow who will bend to the will of the rich donors and the bourgeoisie. And the Barbs and the Deborahs are not having it, man. The base of the party is not having it. As much as they're trying to put their foot on the scale, the base of the party does not want that. And you saw it at the convention. It's going back to the convention. I encourage everybody to look up the videos of the convention when the candidates are giving their speeches and listen to the crowd and how the crowd is reacting. There is a clear difference on what the base of the party wants and who they're and who is meeting the moment, who
Yeah.
is meeting.
Oh, I didn't have any. I was just like agreeing. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, it's cool. It's just wild to me, man. It's wild to me that the Democratic base still has not learned nothing. We have Republicans that are part of this state that tried to help steal the election. Okay? That's the reality of what we are dealing with. We have Republicans here that are in this state that tried to help with the coup in 2024.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it is ridiculous to me. It is ridiculous to me that. Hold on one quick second. Hold on one quick second.
Oh no, you're good. Yeah, it's ridiculous. I don't know. I've been finding a lot of things ridiculous lately, but um, I was waiting for Lawrence to come back in, but yeah, I think one of the big takeaways that I have is, I think this is a good development from the convention. Now, a lot of y'all who've followed me for years now, like I no longer really think my North Star is not going to be inside the Democratic Party. It's probably one of the biggest political developments for me over the years. I think like focusing more on organizing workers, unionizing, exercising worker power. That is really going to be what wins us the future that we need. But I'm not so cynical to think that, having some allies in the halls of power is a complete waste of time, and particularly like having people who know their stuff. Abdul El Sayed, as we mentioned last week, wrote a book about Medicare for all. He's worked in healthcare most of his adult life. Having people
It
who
is
know,
at the
like,
public library. It's
walk the
at the
walk and
public
talk.
library. You can rent
Yep, it's
it.
at the library. You can find it there.
Yeah,
But yeah, having people who walk the walk, talk the talk, and have good politics. Um, that I think that is an important thing to have running parallel to again more grassroots um, worker movements. But Lawrence, did you? I know you're back. Did you have more to say? I'm sorry.
Oh no. I'm going. I don't have more to say. I just thought it was funny. Go back and check those things out. We all need a good laugh, and we all need a little bit of hope. And I got
Mhm.
nothing but hope watching the convention. Um, that's better than the next story that we have to talk about, because I know that we have to talk about a few. There's a few other stories that we got to talk about that's heavy. One of the stories that I want to talk about, just a quick highlight. Um, I don't know if you saw recently that that 47, that our current president was being barred from being in the situation room by his own generals because of some of the uh because of how unhinged and detached from reality that he's been becoming. There was multiple stories that came out over the weekend and over the last week, because they're trying to spin the fact that they have lost this war to Iran, right?
Yeah, yeah, pretty much. There's no there's no however you would define victory in that conflict, which they didn't even define it at the outset, was probably one of the biggest issues. But There is no pathway towards whatever that would be for the United States empire. You know.
And so because of that, some of the stories that I have been hearing, or that I saw, and again, take it with a grain of salt, but CNN and not CNN, I saw it in Raw story in the Intercept. And shout out to the Intercept drop site, Jeremy Scahill and others. They've been doing the Lord's work. Also, Amy Goodman from Democracy Now. She actually went on Hassan's show. She did a hour and some change. I think it was
Oh
like a
yeah,
2 hour
yeah.
interview.
I was
Super.
watching that the other day while I was making dinner. I'd highly recommend
Yeah,
it, especially just to hearing journalists talk about journalism. It's really hits the my Q zone, so to speak. But
yeah.
really good
Yes,
interview.
yes.
Yeah.
He has a fantastic documentary that's coming out. It's called Steal the Story. Please,
Hmm.
if you haven't checked it out, check it out when it comes out near you. Um, it's it's uh it's going to be talking about how we, even with our with our much smaller show, how we can affect change and speak truth to power, and how we are supposed to, and how journalists are supposed to act, right?
Hmm.
Um, but the reason why I bring that up in this in this particular story is that normally when you're spinning stories, especially when it comes to a war that's unpopular, um, you have different people trying to control the narrative. I don't know if you've recently seen the, but Iran has been dropping memes. They've been blasting the fact that Trump's in the Epstein files. They were dropping
Yeah,
Lego AI.
their meme game is like 100%. I actually wanted to pick your brain since like I know we're both like we're both hip hop heads, and they've been dropping all of these AI rap videos. It's
And it bothers me. The reason why it bothers me is because it's actually kind of good.
yeah. I think it's very savvy because it's like the Iranians. I think they understand it, like in an implicit way, because they're very educated and they understand how American culture works. And like, we've commented on this on the show, our pathway to left politics, it's not like, a Karl Marx book didn't just fall on my head one day. It was, I grew up listening to Public Enemy and KRS-One and Dead Prez and Immortal Technique. And for so many people in America, that was their on-ramp to that kind of
Yeah,
politics.
yeah. Common, Talib Kweli, Yasin Bey, who's now known as Mighty Most Def. You can even talk about Kanye a little bit in that conversation as
Yeah,
well.
before he went made that weird turn, but he
Yeah,
did have better politics for a while. Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah, early Kanye, pre
Mhm.
Kardashian Kanye, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
Um, we're talking about people like we're talking about even uh even people like Wu Tang Clan and Nas, even like had a lot of class politics, even in some of their songs, right?
Hmm.
Um, you could talk about artists, even female artists like Queen Latifah. We're talking about
Yeah.
artists
Hmm.
like uh, uh, Lauren Hill. When we're talking about uh, these artists who had a lot more to say, who had a lot to say, especially in putting a microphone, a magnifying glass on society. But hip hop always been that way. Even going
Hmm.
back to, yes, you
Was
had
it Jesse Jackson or Al Sharpton who said like hip rap is the CNN of the black community, which is kind of like the whole
I,
American community at this point, but
yeah, I forgot who said that, but even when you're looking at the, well, hip hop is a culture. But we're talking about one particular part of the culture.
Mhm.
But even when I think about the message all the way back in the late 70s,
Don't
early 80s,
push
right?
me because I'm close to
Right.
the edge. Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah. So there's always been this just like punk and other styles of music that like in other artists like Rage Against the Machine and things of that nature, System of a Down, things of that nature, and other artists. Hip hop artists have always related to and spoke of the times and the signs of the times. Shout out to Prince, signs of the times.
Hmm.
R.I.P. Prince, rest in peace.
Oh, yeah.
But
Wearing the shirt today. It's 10 years today, man. Oof. All right. Anyways.
yeah, yeah.
By the way,
Uh,
if y'all like music, stay tuned. The next show, my music show at 2 is it's gonna be all Prince
yeah.
for 2 hours. But
Um,
anyway.
yeah. Oh man, it's gonna be fire. That's gonna be fire.
Hmm.
I think the thing the going back to the question, Iran Iran understands that in war the the message and the propaganda has to be just as good as your actual fighting capabilities. You need to
Hmm.
be able to spin the sword. They've been able to do that, and I don't like the fact that they're using AI hip hop. But I'm not gonna lie and say it's not. It's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Some of it's actually
Yeah.
good.
I think it's
It
like
like
my kind of where I come down on it because I know generally I'm against AI content generation, but if I'll tell you what, if it's a country that's actively being bombed by us, you know what, use whatever tools you got at your disposal.
I,
Yeah.
I don't. I feel the same way. I feel the same way. Like when it comes to comedy. Like I feel the same way when it comes to comedy. Like look, I mean, I grew up. We both grew up in the '80s. We both grew up in the '90s and early 2000s, where people were saying the most wild and outlandish stuff. But it had to be funny. If it's funny, we we're gonna let it rock. It can
Hmm.
be outlandish, but it needs to do the job and do the job and do the objective. The objective that Iran has is that, hey, America and Israel, y'all attacked us. We was chilling. Before y'all attacked us, the Strait of Hormuz was open. Before you attacked us, we agreed to even to the most restrictive and the most stringent and, and the harshest policies that y'all wanted in the Iran nuclear deal, or not even the Iran nuclear deal, in the deal that you ripped up because you ripped up the Iran nuclear deal. The harshest things that you wanted us to do, y'all, we were willing to do, and y'all still bombed us anyway. All right. Well, now it's BTA now. It's BTA until we feel satisfied,
Hmm.
and that is a horrible place for our country to be.
Yeah. And it's so hard to like, even like trying to keep our listeners up to date on what's going on at Rand. It feels like it changes every like 20 minutes. But as far as I know, the Strait of Hormuz is closed. We are going to be feeling the impacts of that pretty soon. The last oil tanker from before the conflict either is arriving or will arrive soon to American ports. And after that happens, we are really going to start feeling these price shocks in a way that we haven't yet. Um, and
So gas already hit 409.
mhm.
Gas, because like gas and fertilizer and the things that we buy are as high or higher than the pandemic. I want people to marinate on that when we talk
Mhm.
about these subjects. This was a man-made disaster. Like the pandemic. If you believe the conspiracy theories or not believe conspiracy theories, I'm not gonna hold your hand about that. What you believe is what you believe. This in particular, this in particular was a man-made disaster that's just as bad as the pandemic
Yeah.
that shut down the globe.
made by some particularly stupid men. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
uh,
Made by the guardians of the PDF files. Okay, like,
yeah. Hmm.
like there's no reason for it. There was no reason for it at all. And the only way for us to save face is to be like is the only way for 47 to save face and for this administration to save face is to do the mission accomplished banner that George Bush did and say, "Hey, declare that we won. We won. We declare we declare victory," and then leave. And then leave. Forget it ever happened. They're not going to do that, but that's what they should do.
Hmm.
The other thing that also made me upset is that there was a Joe Biden energy advisor, someone that they had in the cabinet, and they went on, I think it was Face the Nation, and they were basically saying that Biden and Harris would have also done the same thing,
Yeah,
which
yeah.
made me
Hmm.
angry. It made me very angry. If you have time to go watch that interview on Face the Nation, I forgot the man's name, but
Well,
I saw it. I also
I
want to talk about it. I was like,
I think there
this
was
is
an
why.
I think there was an Onion headline or something, or like Chuck Schumer wants somebody who can deliver a more competent message about bringing America into war with Iran. And so, yeah, I think people need to understand. And you have a lot of anti-Trump energy, which is good, but I don't think especially some of the people who are getting newly activated don't have as quite a nuanced understanding of how the like the conflict of Iran has been a bipartisan project for a long time. We've had a lot of corporate, more war hawk style Democrats who have been waiting for this moment with bated breath, and even a lot of them who've spoken out against it is basically pressure from the base and are basically only like condemning it in parliamentary terms, like, oh, you didn't do the correct process to do an unjustified war with Iran. So it is you know it's despicable, but it shouldn't be too much of a surprise if a lot of the history of U.S. aggressions against Iran. And it's why, again, that's why we spend a lot of time on the show talking about figures like Abdul El Saeed, who could ostensibly push the United States in a direction where it is not trying to throw its weight around to overthrow governments, which again is a practice that has happened under both Democratic and Republican administrations. Just the Democrats tend to be a little bit more subtle about it than the Republicans do.
try to they try to give you propaganda. They try to give you propaganda that to justify the similar action. They just don't want the blowback. Republicans don't care about the consequences. They're gonna do it because they're idiots. Democrats will also try to do it, but they just don't want the blowback from what happens, which also makes them idiots.
Yeah.
Like,
Hmm.
and that it's it bothered it bothered me so much that when I saw the interview on Face the Nation, and I'm like, why go into this situation at all? We are old enough to remember when Bibi Netanyahu tried to go uh President Obama into doing this very same action.
Yeah. Hmm.
And President Obama told him, "Hey, you can do that. We just will no longer give you uh, armaments for Iron Dome. Choose to do it. Choose to do it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Hmm.
Go ahead and do that. You you can fight them all you want. Hey, do you, player? But we won't give you funding for Iron Dome." And when you tell the vassal state, because that's what Israel is our vassal state, hey, hey, you will heal. They will heal. When you have someone who who sees the actions that Bibi Netanyahu is doing and saying, "Hey, what you're doing is crazy. You're hurting everybody. You're gonna hurt us." But
Hmm.
as Bibi said, he's been winning this war for over 40 years, and he finally has a president that's dumb enough to do it. They're dumb enough to send U.S. troops and American money to fight a war that he won't even send his own troops to on the front lines for.
Yeah. Oh.
Like yeah,
All right.
absolutely crazy.
I think we might wrap it up about here. I got to go use the little DJ's room before I transition to my next show. But you
Oh,
got any
oh,
closing thoughts, Lawrence, before we wrap
oh,
things up?
I have a few quick hits, and I'm gonna keep it quick. I have a few quick hits. Um, so I don't like we've had multiple conversations about Dave Chappelle, right? Dave Chappelle did an interview on NPR recently, and another like well, okay, so we took well, two quick things. One, we brought up Kanye West, and Kanye West had a show, and he's been trying to go on this redemption tour of apologizing and things of that nature. There's nothing that he could do, in my opinion, that's going to make me forget the unbelievable, and disrespectful things that he said that harmed my community. I could never, and I would never support anything that he has coming up unless there's actual real restitution and things that he's actually doing. I'm never ever going to be listening to any of his new stuff. Um, we have his first 3 to 4 albums that I will always fall back on, but that's because his first 3 to 4 albums, uh, uh, in my opinion, is his best work. I'll even give you 5. Dark Twisted Fantasy was actually pretty good too,
Yeah.
but yeah, uh, that was a quick hit. But Dave Chappelle's interview, it bothered me because
Yeah.
and the reason why I wanted to bring it up is because I loved I still love and defend Dave even when he has some of his worst and horrible takes. I don't like I don't I think it's very dumb, or he thinks that the community is dumb when he gave his interview and he didn't realize that the Republicans were going to use his jokes and weaponize his jokes to harm people.
Hmm.
When in his first special, when he came back, he talks about the Republicans weaponizing the identity of trans folks and things of that nature. It's like, hey, I didn't know. It's the equivalent of saying, hey, I didn't know that the Nazis was going to use my anti-Jewish jokes as a part of their propaganda. And I'm like,
Yeah.
come on, Dave,
I was
come on,
thinking about
dog.
that too, and it's like, let okay, let's permit you the grace that, like, okay, let's say you don't actually hate trans people, but we all warned you. This is why you shouldn't do these punching down jokes. Like this is, they are a marginalized community. It's gonna be weaponized, and like it's like responsible. A lot of those, free speech comedians are just like, well, everybody, I should be allowed to make fun of everybody. Everybody. It's like you can make fun of everybody, but for particular groups, there are very specific consequences. And you would
Well,
think somebody who is savvy enough to make the kind of material that deals with racism, as David Chappelle has, might have had some kind of understanding about that. But lo and behold,
well,
it's like,
well,
I can't believe the leopards used my tools to eat people's faces with. Oh man, that's
the other thing, well, for me, it goes back to the criticism that we was making earlier. You can say whatever you want, but as a comedian, your job is to make it funny. White chicks love the movie,
Mhm.
not like the movie. You want to know one thing about white chicks that when the Wayans brothers created, you want to know the main group of people who love that movie? It was white women. if the group that you're talking about is not laughing at the jokes, then you're not making jokes. You're not making jokes.
Yeah.
You're harming.
That's another
And
thing.
and
Like, if you go back and look at those jokes, not only, yeah, okay, they're punching down on trans people, but they're about as inspired as the kind of jokes that your uncle tells at Thanksgiving. Like,
yeah,
those are not quality jokes. I would not have
yeah.
died on that hill. Those
Well,
jokes sucked.
it was it's that, but also for me, the reason why the fall off, the like his fall off, made me so angry. Well, was that you said like as I saw we saw you walk away from a $50 million deal because you felt like Comedy Central was no longer laughing with you with the jokes; they were laughing at you. You felt like they were playing with your dignity and your humanity, and you respectfully declined to deal with them. To then turn around and say you didn't understand what respectfully decline was when Lauren Boebert came up to you and wanted to take a picture with you, and
Mm,
then
yeah.
use that picture with you to then weaponize and harming trans identity. It's 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 it means you were either ignorant then when you were making those jokes, which I don't believe, or you're ignorant, or you believe that people are ignorant now in what you're saying. And
Yeah.
that's for me. I'm like, all right, look, you're a comedian. You're a comedian. I'm not gonna hold you to a higher standard than I hold politicians, but your whole brand was about morals and principles, even in your comedy. I expected better, and I shouldn't expect better from someone who will then tap dance. And that was the other thing. The thing that made me the most upset was the Saudi Arabia uh, thing.
Oh
All the
yeah.
comedians that went all the comedians that went over there, not just Dave, but also Kevin Hart and Andrew Schultz, all of them. There were a bunch of white
Yeah.
comedians that also went over there.
Oh yeah, Bill
All
Burr
of
has really been trying to position himself as like, like, oh, I'm a progressive now, and then he went and did that. It's just like, what?
yeah, all of them that went over there helped to comedy wash a regime that literally has African slaves. If that comedy fest for me, this is how I rationalize it. And maybe because there's no conscious consumerism, there's no conscious consumerism under capitalism. Capitalism in its very nature is exploitative, and we get that. If that was
Mhm.
a private organization that wanted to do a comedy tour, a comedy organization that was a private citizen trying to bring some culture and stuff into Saudi Arabia, that's trying to widen the tent of what can be jokes and stuff there, that's one thing. That was the government. That was the government trying to comedy wash
Yeah.
their atrocities. It's the same thing when Saudi Arabia also does the boxing and the golfing. They're trying to use sports and entertainment to wash their wash human atrocities away, and for people to look at those things instead of looking at the things that they're doing to harm their people. And for me, again, going back to morals and principles, taking money from a government that's doing that for me is like taking money from apartheid South Africa in the 90s, or
Hmm.
taking money from Mussolini and Hitler during the 30s and 40s, right? Like,
Hmm.
no, absolutely not. And for you to make the art, and for him in particular to make the argument that, hey, Netflix does deals with Saudi Arabia, our president does deals with Saudi Arabia. Why can't I? It's the equivalent of saying, hey, other people are making money off of slaves. Why can't I? And it's like,
Yeah.
you shouldn't be making money off of slaves. You shouldn't
Hmm.
be making money off of slaves.
No.
That's the whole
Period.
point.
Yeah.
That's the whole principle. Period. And the fact that you and the fact that people do not understand that, this is not even just about him. I don't want other people or people in our audience to understand that. Not all money is good money. I remember hearing that when I was a little kid.
Hmm.
And especially when you are already a multimillionaire, you are a multimillionaire that can walk away from $50 million, but you're tap dancing for 5 or 6 now. Like, no, dog. Like, no, dog.
Hmm.
I can't. I can't personally square that circle for you. That's not something that I would uphold or something. I can't that's not the principles and morals that I expect someone who I love and dear to hold.
100%. I think we are going to have to close it with that. I know there's a lot of stuff we didn't get to. The whole story about the sexual assault website academy thing. I really wanted to hit on that, but we don't have time.
Dog,
I guess
no,
long.
no, that we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about that later this week.
Yeah,
Like me and you said that
yeah.
we're gonna put
Mhm,
out some extra. We're gonna put out an extra hour. We me and Andy talked about we're gonna do an
yeah.
extra hour or a half an hour
Mhm.
uh uh sometime during the week. So
Okay.
watch out for that. We're gonna
Okay.
start with that story because that story's
All right.
crazy.
All right. Y'all, want to thank y'all for listening. This has been Media Cyphers only on 89.1 WIDR. You can also find us online, Media Cyphers on Facebook, YouTube, and Media Cyphers Kalamazoo podcast. You can find it on most podcasting apps. Until next time, everybody, keep on fighting for that revolution solution.